Excuse me while I cough and clear my throat. Haha, I almost said coffin, clear my throat, which would have been a very, very bad pun if ever there was one. But, you know, we start the show by waving an object, a prop, in front of the camera. We do it for a few seconds, maybe a minute or so, to make sure that contact has indeed been established between my camera, your eyes, your ears, your brain, via this wonderful thing that we like to call the internet. And once I've been somewhat satisfied that it is working the way it should be working, I tip my glasses up, drop the pop. Take two. I tip my glasses up, drop the prop, and reveal the identity of the man behind the annual care grave marker. Yes, it's me, Malcolm Tent, and this is this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. I could just kind of hold that up. It's kind of a bit of a T shape in its own right, isn't it? Okay, Tent Talks Tunes. Yay, it's here, it's happening, it's now. And as always, Mr. James Pogo and Alan Versapellis are the first ones to make their presences registered. Hello, dudes. What's up? Hope yous all are doing well, man. I'm feeling all right myself. I've had a real good day out in the yard. Sean Mosher. Hello, Sean. Good to see you. Good to hear from you. Spent a lot of time today in the yard with a brand new sigh. It's one of those swinging sighs. It's got a kind of a slanted blade at the end of a long handle. And you swing it back and forth and chop down weeds. Man, that was so much fun. It was a good workout. It was very productive. And I got to get out all of my bile, anger, hatred, aggression, piss, vinegar, irritation. So therapeutic. By the time I was done chopping down half a yard full of weeds manually with a swinging sigh, I was just as gentle as a lamb, as helpless as a kitten, as sweet as a baby. But that's all over with now because it's time for Tent Talks Tunes, and we're going to very aggressively, very powerfully talk about music and artifacts and things like grave markers. Look at that annual care, guys. Annual care. Hello, Eric Johnson. To quote the very words of Eric Johnson, my radical fellow vegan straight edge friend. Right on, man. I was just meditating upon the fact that when I moved to North Carolina, which should be by the end of the year, I'm going to be pretty much right either smack dab in the middle or on the periphery of the Livermush Triangle. Now, that is very much a North Carolina thing. Mike Lesser, do you know what I'm talking about? Erica, do you know what I'm talking about? I'm going to be right on the very edge of the Livermush Triangle. Now, Livermush, let me tell you, I never heard of Livermush until I started associating with people from North Carolina. And even people from parts of the state outside of the Livermush Triangle might not know what it is. It's an extremely localized regional delicacy. I remember visiting my good friend John Bridges, a.k.a. John the Baptist, a.k.a. King James Jr., in Wilmington, and he was happy as peach pie because he had scored a brand new pack of Livermush that he had in his refrigerator, and he could not normally get it in Wilmington. And Chrissy Walker, a.k.a. Pissy Chrissy, am I being corrected? Is it Livermoosh? How do you pronounce it? Livermush? Livermush? Livermoosh? Livermush? How do you pronounce it? Is anybody from the Livermush Triangle able to clue me in as to the correct pronunciation? Because when I'm down there, I don't want anyone to know that I'm not from the area. You know, it's like when you go to New York City and you ask directions, you say, hey man, where's Houston Street? That's it. Game over. They know immediately that you are not a townie. So you don't go to New York City and say Houston Street. You don't go to the liver mush triangle and say, according to Chrissy Walker, you don't say liver moosh. You say liver mush. Liver mush. Liver mush. Liver mush. I'll get it right eventually. Anyway, I'm going to be living there in the liver mush triangle. And I've said many, many times that if anybody makes a vegan version of liver mush, I will eat it. I will not eat the real thing, being the vegan mofo that I am. But if anybody out there comes up with a vegan version of liver mush, I will be all over that like brown on rice. Because I'll admit, you know, I'm an honest man. I'm transparent. I'll tell you that, you know, having been a full-time vegan now for 23 years, there's still something about the smell of bacon in the air that just smells right. It just feels good. It just feels good. And I've been in the same room where some liver mush is being fried up and it smelled good. Okay? I'm telling you honestly, it smelled really good. So, I've had vegan corn dogs. I've had vegan chicken nuggets. I've had vegan bacon. I've had vegan burgers. What we are calling for now is vegan liver mush. It's got to be done. Surely there is some chef, some fry cook, somewhere in the liver mush triangle who can make a vegan version of liver mush. We got Brian Russell tuning in saying that, Malcolm, lots of people won't eat the real thing even around here. Well, I've heard that too. I've definitely seen a couple of lips curl and some noses wrinkle at the sight, smell, and thought of liver mush. So, as Sean Mosher has just pointed out, vegan jerky. Oh, yes, I've had my fair share of vegan jerky. A couple of good friends of mine out in Cleveland, Ohio, make their own brand of vegan jerky, and man, it is good. Scrumptious, yo. Almost as good as an annual care grave marker, such as the one that I've been waving around all day here on this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. What a great prop, you know? I have 4 of these things. I had 5, but now I'm down to 4, and by the time I'm done with the Trash American style final revival next weekend, I hope to be down to 0. I really, you know, I love my stuff. I love stuff. Stuff loves me. My friends who are disciples, devotees, studiers, students of Eastern religions would say it's karma. My karma attracts stuff to me, and vice versa. I am attracted to stuff. Something about material objects and things. I get along very well with them. It's an interesting thing to be having such a great relationship with things. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here today on Tent Talks Tunes. How did I get so much stuff? Was it merely karma? Is it just karma? Is it this rampant need for self-determination? Is it just pure dumb luck? Is it stupidity? So much stuff. So much stuff. What's Eric got to say? He says, if you ever make it up to Minneapolis... Oh, if I ever make it up to Minneapolis, we will have to hit up the Hard Times Vegan Punk Cafe. You know, Eric, that's a date. And I will say, almost exactly, I think this might even be 1 year to the day, almost exactly 1 year ago to this very day, July 17th. And you guys are welcome to fact check that if you want. But I'm pretty sure it was 1 year ago today. I was on tour with Profanatica, and we played a gig in South St. Paul, Minneapolis. And not only was it a great gig and a really awesome venue to play, we were treated well. One of the ways we were treated well was the hospitality rider, which included free food. And the venue had a very nice menu, vegan friendly, and they had a vegan bratwurst. You notice how intense I just got? How I furrowed my brow and raised my left eyebrow? Vegan bratwurst with fried onions and all the trimmings. Oh, Man, that thing was good. That thing was so good. I don't know if I'd ever had a real bratwurst back in my pre-vegan days, but this vegan bratwurst, it was good. Like, the texture was right, the flavor was right, the fried onions. I mean, come on, I don't even like onions, but the fried onions on this vegan brat were ace, primo, choice, screamo. 1 year ago today, vegan brat. So, all right, Eric. Minneapolis St. Paul has already put itself on the map on my menu in my cookbook. I will raise a toast of Danbury Tap to Minnesota Vegan Chow. Yes, 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 yes. Sean Mosher says it is not hoarding if it's records. Well, can't argue with that. I will be the last guy on this webcast to argue with that sentiment, sir. But even then, you just got to thin them out a little bit. As Mike Lesser just pointed out, moving is anti-things. Yes, when you're trying to pack up your household and move it 810 miles in one direction, the more stuff you have, the more you're encumbered. The more it costs you to move it. It's more work. I mean, some of this stuff is heavy, man. Crates of records are heavy. Boxes of books are heavy. Boxes of magazines are real heavy. I swear to God, a big box of magazines is heavier than a similar size box of books or records. I don't know why that is, but man, magazines are super heavy. How did I end up with all these magazines? Man, I've probably got, like, if I recall correctly, on my kitchen counter now, which has been cleared away of all utensils, all cookware. There are no kitchen items in my kitchen anymore. It's all magazines now. It's something like, I think, 6 vintage ginger ale crates full of magazines. Them suckers is heavy. They are real heavy. You definitely got to lift with your knees and not your back when you're trying to pick up magazines, bro. Man, how did I get so many of them? How did I get so many of them? How did I get so many books? Look at all these books. Well, this is only one book. This is actually the book that started it all for me. Not this very copy of the book, because that is in a box in North Carolina now. But this book itself, Wonderful Tonight by Patty Boyd. This started my magnificent obsession with acquiring lots and lots of books. Now, way back when, over back yonder, I used to have a radio show. I had a radio show called Mr. Tent's Wild Ride. And it was on a radio station in West Haven, Connecticut, which used to be Connecticut's #1 college radio station. Now it's a heap of steaming garbage, which is why I'm not going to mention its name, because it's not worth mentioning anymore. But I was on that radio station for about 11 years. Actually, more like 13, 14 years. I did a long tour of duty down there. And what I liked to do, because I'm a very efficient dude, was rather than just drive from home to the radio station, do my show, and drive back, I'd like to go and bum around the neighborhood and see what there was to see, look for, grocery stores, restaurants, and wouldn't you know it, thrift shops. And it turns out that there were a couple of really good thrift shops down there on the post road by this radio station, including one, for some reason, always had, like, killer books, like a real high-class, well-selected collection of books. And I remember very clearly being in there, just kind of casually looking at the books. Because, when you go to your average thrift shop book section, it's 400 copies of It Doesn't Take a Hero by Norman Schwarzkopf. It's 1 or 2 solid shelves of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's who even knows how many iterations of Chicken Soup for your goldfish's soul, for your dead uncle's soul. Man, it gets to be kind of dreary and depressing sometimes, but then I saw the spine of this book, and it just kind of leapt out at me, not only because it was purple It had a picture of Patty Boyd, but because it was purple, and it had a picture of Patty Boyd, and I was like, hey, wait a minute. That's an interesting book. That's not the umpteenth centrifugillionth copy of MySpace for Dummies. That's by Patty Boyd, man. She was married to George Harrison and Eric Clapton, and she wrote a book about her life. And it's $1. That looks pretty cool. I think I'll grab it. So I grabbed it, took it home, read it immediately, and that was it. That was all it took. That was the beginning of my magnificent mission to get as many cool books as I could. Not only for myself, because I am an avid reader. I love to read books. I love to collect books. But also because in my business as a full-time seller of stuff, I always did pretty good with books. My fabled brick-and-mortar store, Trash American Style, whose neon sign you can see on the flyer for what I'm doing next week, we always had a pretty large book section, and I was very happy that people bought lots of books. I took a lot of joy from that, especially young people. Young people would go in, and they'd be looking around, and they'd see the book section and just kind of zero right in on it. And we only sold good books. There was no thrift shop filler. There were no mass market trade paperbacks. There was no yard sale junk. It was all stuff that I specifically picked out that I wanted to have on the shelves of Trash American Style. And that's kind of the way everything was at the store. Nothing was in there by accident. Or if it did end up there by accident, it ended up either in the free box or in the dollar box. The main sales floor was, to use the modern day parlance, carefully curated. Everything that went out there was hand selected either by myself or by my business partner Kathy, or by the people who worked for me who knew, who had a grip on the whole trash aesthetic. I trusted my employees to bring things in. I trusted them to handle collections because they had good taste and they knew what they were doing. That was a criterion for working at Trash American Style. So I was always in the habit of having books close at hand. And it worked very well at the store, but the problem was, after the landlord screwed us out of our lease, I didn't have an outlet for books anymore. Like, I tried to sell books at some of the colleges I used to sell at up here in the Northeast. I would go to Bard College, Vassar, Wesleyan, SUNY Purchase, sometimes UConn, sometimes WestConn, Southern, mostly colleges in New York State. I tried to take the books there a few times and nobody was really interested. I guess your average college student was pretty much booked out. Didn't really want any more books. And nobody at the record shows really buys books. So I just never had an outlet for the books. But man, I just loved them so much that I could not help myself. If I was at a thrift shop and I saw some good books at a good price, I'd pick them up. I just could not leave them behind. I felt like I was orphaning them if I didn't grab them, and at least try to find a good home for them. So that went on for, about 10 years or so, until I realized, man, I just don't have enough room for these things. I just don't have enough room. And so using extreme willpower, I stopped going to the thrift shops, especially that had the good books. But it was too late because I already had boxes and boxes and boxes of the dang things. Boxes of them. And when I did my last big pop-up store back in either 18 or 19, I forget which year, I think it was 19, over the holiday season, I brought a lot of books, and sure enough, I sold a lot of books. So that gave me hope for the Trash American Style Final Revival, the last Connecticut Trash American Style pop-up store, which is next week, July 26th, 27th, and 28th. I have books galore. My entire living room, which is over to my right and off camera, has been transformed into a library. I took all of my personal collection out, boxed it up, shipped it to NC, and moved in all of the for sale books. And it's a pretty good selection, and I'm selling them on the reasonable side of fair market. And I'm just going to put this out. I'm not making any promises or any guarantees, but it's conceivable. It is conceivable that, especially by the third day of the sale, Sunday the 28th, it's conceivable if by then I'm still sitting on an awful lot of books, I might be cutting deals. I just may very well be cutting deals. Heck, any of you guys who really know me know I'm probably be cutting deals anyway, because I'm just like, I'm a soft touch for my frantic fans and my loyal listeners and my classy customers. All of you guys, I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for you. So, you know, there's probably going to be some shading of the prices, which are already on the reasonable side of fair market. I'm just saying. Because as Mike Lesser pointed out, moving is anti-things. And, you know, anything I don't sell, I'll simply take to North Carolina with me and remain in the game. But logistically, it just makes sense to have less. Less bulk, less hassle, less sweat, more money in the moving fund. And besides, what would my neighbors think? In my new neighborhood in North Carolina, wherever it is, if I showed up in the neighborhood with a Huey Lewis mirror, which most likely came from the Danbury Fair sometime in the 80s. I mean, I know there's probably people out there who like Huey Lewis. I'm sure Huey Lewis has got some defenders out there, maybe some apologists. Sure, he played on the first Elvis Costello record. Yeah, he was respected in the music scene, I believe, in San Francisco. But he has not, in my opinion, done anything worth a good goddamn in many, 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 many years, if ever. And this is just a testament to my lack of ability to pass something up. I saw this Huey Lewis mirror somewhere. It was the right price, the right era. It had the right aesthetic. Couldn't help myself. I grabbed it. So yeah, I'm going to be putting this on the shelf at the final farewell Trash American style pop-up store. But to counterbalance that, we got AC/DC. We got AC/DC Back in Black, another piece of fine, fine carnival glass. And it's kind of the same deal. I'm not even a big fan of AC/DC, but, you know, as an object, tell me that's not cool. Tell me that is not an awesome period piece. That will be hanging proudly on the wall with a price tag on it. Bet your bottom dollar, kids. You want art? Did anybody ever go into a department store in the 1970s? I did. I spent a lot of time in department stores in the 1970s. The great department stores in my youth in South Florida, such as Grant's, Jackson Byron's, Zayre's, Jefferson's. Of course, everybody knows the obviously ones like J.C. Penney, Sears. We had Burdines. Did I mention Jordan Marsh? I think that's about it. But for some reason, one of the ones I remember the best. Oh, Mike Lesser, a Gold Triangle. Yes, Gold Triangle was a South Florida department store. The one I remember the best, besides the Treasury, another great South Florida department store, the Treasury was my favorite department store of all. Grant's was probably my second. Grant's was more like a giant-sized dime store, or what you kids today call a dollar store. It was a huge, huge dime store. Now, Kimberly Taylor Cross, she's name-checking some great Connecticut department stores from way back when. And I remember, yes, Reed's, Caldor's, Ames, What are some of the other awesome Connecticut department stores? Reed's, Caldor's, Ames, John Coletti, you know. Name a couple. God, I should know them all by now, but I'm starting to kind of draw blanks. Corvettes. Yes, Corvettes. There was also Ben Franklin's. Ben Franklin, which is kind of like a department slash dime store. All the Bradley's. Yes, Bradley's. How could I have possibly forgotten Bradley's? We are talking real Connecticut department store history here. Oh my God. Yes, Scott LaRock chimes in also with Bradley's. You better believe it. So anyway, when I was a kid in South Florida, we had Grant's. And Grant's specialized in, you know, cheap kitsch. Cheap, tacky kitsch. This one might even be from Grant's. But check it out. This was from their dollar sale. 2 for $1. This wonderful ersatz Keane kid painting. I got tons of these darn things, and I've posted quite a few pictures of them. A lot of these, lots of black velvets. These are fond memories of my childhood because you saw these in every department store, wherever you went. And I remember lots of like elderly aunts and uncles and next door neighbors all had these round-eyed kids hanging in their living rooms. And Mr. John the Bomb Coletti wants to know if this is an authentic Keane. I don't think this is an authentic Keane, but I do have one authentic Keane. And it's very funny because, you know, it's a framed print like this of a little moppet with the big round eyes. And it actually has a plaque on the bottom that says the name of the piece, and it's credited to Walter Keane. Credited to Walter Keane. And if you guys know the history of Keane kids, you'll know why it's very interesting that that painting is credited to Walter Keane. All I'm going to say is that if you look up Walter Keane on Wikipedia, which I did the other night while I was researching some of these paintings, you will see that he is called by his well-earned title, which is plagiarist. The Wikipedia entry says right there, Walter Keane, plagiarist. That's it. That's the only title or explanation of who he is that's on there. And I laughed at that. I got a big kick out of that, and that's where karma always pays off. Somewhere down the road, you're going to get your proper title, and Walter Keane is a plagiarist, officially on the books. So yes, to answer your question, Mr. John the Bomb Coletti, I do have one authentic Keane attributed to Walter Keane, and many of the knockoffs by Eden, by Kruge, by... there's a couple others. There's so many of them. So I got a lot of round-eyed kids in varying sizes. It's another one of those things, man. If nobody buys them, I'm just going to take them home and hang them in my own living room. But I've already schlepped boxes of art down to North Carolina. As SSD from Boston, from Baston, once asked, how much art can you take? How much art can you take with you? I don't want to find out. Yes, John Coletti says there was a movie called Big Eyes based on the Keane paintings and the story thereof. I would love to see that. That's on the queue. You know what else is on the queue? It is not necessarily an aspirateur pour disques, but it is a Ronco record vacuum. Oh boy, look at that. Not only that, a factory sealed Ronco record vacuum. And like every one of these things I've got, it rattles a little bit. I had a case of 12 of these at one time. I'm down to like 6 or 7 now. And if I had really not been able to resist the urge, I could have had 7 cases of these things. 7 factory-sealed original cases of Ronco record vacuums. And you might pose the question, Malcolm Tent, you old creep, why on earth, how on earth, and where on earth could you have had access to 7 cases of sealed Ronco record vacs? Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you the story about that, kids. As I gulp a little bit of Walter. I'm going to miss this Danbury tap, you know. I did commission a feasibility study on having a pipeline built from the Danbury water treatment plant down to North Carolina, wherever I end up. And I just plugged in a couple of different cities at random, you know, just to get different estimates based on varying distances. And cost prohibitive. It's just, even for a man of my means, a man who has almost a dozen Ronco record vacs, even with assets like this at my disposal, it is just going to cost a little too much to build a pipeline to North Carolina from Danbury. So I'm just going to have to fill her up whenever I am in Danbury in the future, which I will be, you know. They say that a child in infancy will become acclimated to any sort of taste when it comes to food. You know, a child does not necessarily prefer sweet foods. A child can get used to and grow up to love exclusively, you know, bland foods, bitter foods, savory foods, whatever. So I'm assuming that even though I am acclimated to Danbury Tap, I can get reacclimated to North Carolina Tap, whatever town it's in. The record vacs did not come from North Carolina. The record vacs came from a town called Jackson, Michigan. Jackson, Michigan. And you might wonder why I was in Jackson, Michigan. Well, I was on tour. I was on tour in the year 2012, I believe. My touring vehicle at the time was a Saturn station wagon. And I was doing one of my first or second DIY tours as a solo acoustic guy. And I found this venue in Jackson. It was a punk rock house called Bird Alley. Played a show there. It was really cool. Lots of wild-ass kids, bonfire, you know, raucous rock and roll. My shtick fit in perfectly with this big old party atmosphere that was in effect. Really a lot of fun. And it was also the first time I ever slept in my car, because the party at this place was nonstop. And as far as I'm concerned, once I play the show and pack up my stuff at the end of the night, the party's over. It's time to get some sleep and get ready for the drive the next day. But these kids were not having it, so I was like, fug. I just went off, parked my car in a quiet corner, and slept in my car. Because what else was I going to do? Woke up the next morning, fairly early, and it was a Saturday, and I was heading out of town, and I was like, you know, I still got plenty of time. I don't have to be anywhere until tonight, Saturday. What do they got for tag sales around here? So I just started randomly driving around Jackson, Michigan, and sure enough, I found some tag sales. And anybody out there who is a tag sailor, a yard sailor, whatever you want to call it, garage sale, it's all the same. You know, it's Joe and Mabel America with all of their possessions out on the front yard or in the garage or whatever with price tags on them. And if you've been to one of these things, or if you've been to 3 million of these things, you know that the majority goes with the swill. The majority goes with the swill, which is why your average tag sale is about 98.6% garbage. And if you're lucky, somewhere around 1.25%, at least interesting stuff. And of that percentage, maybe a percentage of that is actually something good and worth picking up. Yeah, there's a lot of baby toys out there and a lot of mall clothes and a lot of, I guess back in the day it was fake Keanes. I don't know, I love them, but back in the day it's probably a bunch of these. You know what I mean? There's a lot of garbage at your average tag sale. But the more you look at, the more persistent you are, and the more patience you have, the more likely you are to be rewarded with some cultural gold. And in this case, it wasn't too difficult because this is a little old couple, an old husband and wife, somebody's grandma and granddad. They had their yard sale, and sitting there on the driveway were 7 giant cases of Ronco record vacs just sitting there. And I said, excuse me, but how is it that you have so many Ronco record vacs, brand new factory sealed in the original cases? And it turns out that their grandson at one time worked for Ronco. And how he ended up with all those cases, I don't know. You might remember the timeless American credo from the Clinton years, don't ask, don't tell. I didn't ask. They didn't tell. This is many years after the fact anyway. Ronco ceased operations, I believe, sometime in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, when you're in the business like myself and you love period kitsch and you're staring 7 big cases of Ronco record vacs in the face, you got to get at least one, because the Saturn wagon would not hold all 7 cases of Ronco record vacs. I could not put 84 factory sealed Ronco record vacs into my vehicle at the time, because it had to fit me and my guitar and my merch and, you know, all that stuff. There just wasn't room for 84 Ronco record vacs, but there was room for a dozen. So we did some wheeling, we did some dealing, we did some negotiating, and I ended up with 1 case of Ronco record vacs, which, starting that very afternoon, I started taking around to the various record stores I hit and said, hey guys, my name's Malcolm Tent. I've got this super duper cool record label called TPOS. Here's some stuff I released. You need to sell it. Oh, and by the way, I have factory sealed Ronco record vacs. They sure would look great in your store as display pieces. And I actually sold about, it's like, how many have I got left? 4. I have 7 left, which means I actually did sell 5 of these to record stores in a very short period of time. But then it was back to the same old story. I got home, and if I had still had the brick and mortar record store, I would have put them out on the sales floor and probably sold them lickety-split. As it stood then and as it stands now, I don't have a brick and mortar record store, so I had no retail outlet for factory sealed Ronco record vacs. Hence the presence of 7 of them at the Trash American Style Final Revival, the Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store, July 26th, 27th, and 28th. I've also acquired quite a few pedals in my day because, as I've said so many times, as many of you guys know, I am a noisemaker. I like to strap on the Thunder Lumba and occasionally an electric guitar and plug those instruments into pedals and make a lot of noise. And over the years... Okay, now Sean Mosher, going right back to the Ronco record vac, I don't know, dude, they're factory sealed. Couldn't tell you. I think there's one that's got a loose seal on it. And if anybody really wants to put it to the test, we could probably crack that one open and see what it does. But they're factory sealed, so I don't know. They are sold as is, as period pieces, as decor. And if you can actually end up cleaning records, all the better. And James Pogo, I'm kind of in the same deal. I've never used a Ronco. I don't know. I really don't know. Back in the day when those were on the market, I didn't care. I was just a kid with all my K-Tel Hit Explosion albums and my copy of Kiss Alive 2 and, you know, my first copy of Grand Funk Live album. I did know to clean a record with a soft cloth, but this was advanced technology. I did not know what to do with something like this, and they were expensive for me, so I don't know. But I sure did get a lot of pedals. Oh, and Brian Russell says, I actually do have a Ronco food dehydrator, even as we speak, and it does work, and I've used it a lot. I've used it for everything from making kale chips to baking reel-to-reel tapes. Yes, I have baked tapes in a Ronco food dehydrator. True facts. I've also made an awful lot of noise with these pedals, and as the years have gone by, I have slimmed down my pedal selection to just the ones I need. So there's a whole selection of vintage and semi-vintage music pedals that will be on offer at the Trash America Style Final Revival, and they all work. That I can tell you for a fact. Every one of them works. Every one has been tested. Every one of them has been field tested. Every one powers up. Every one of these things works. So I've got distortion pedals, overdrives. This is the Echo Park Echo pedal. I have various drum machines, tube drivers, all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. Pedals, you better believe it. John Coletti, a.k.a. Mr. Bomb, wants to know if I will have any clothing on offer. Very little clothing. Mainly because what I have always had, what I've ever had in terms of clothing, I've simply used until it wore out. So, that's kind of that. No clothing. I got a lot of VHS. How about some original RF video ECW vids? Right now, this is where everybody goes, ECW, ECW, ECW. Yeah, I got a short stack of genuine factory-made RF ECW videos. And this one's from what, 97? From 97, HHG Corp, subsidiary of RF Videos, yes. Got a few of those. I got a lot of other ding-dong-dang-damn wrestling videos of all stripes. How about Spectre Man? Oh yeah, now we cover all the bases at the Trash American Style pop-up store. By the way, speaking of ECW, I only have a couple of ECW figures, including this very mysterious Tommy Dreamer figure. This is a weird one. I did some research on ECW figures, and supposedly all of these things date from 1999. Everyone that I was able to find online was dated 1999, but this guy's dated 1997. If you look at his foot, and I know you won't be able to see this, but on the bottom of his foot is a manufacturer stamp that very clearly says 1997, not 1999. Couldn't find anything about this. An enduring mystery. But I do have a Bubba Ray Dudley 1999 figure with baseball bat on the shelf over in what used to be my kitchen. ECW video. One ECW figure. How about Spectre Man on video? How about Ultraman figures? You want Ultraman? Well, I got Ultraman. This is only the small little sampling of Ultraman. I have Ultramans, I guess. Not only Ultraman, but a Bolton. I got a couple of Boltons. Ultraman and Boltons. Arr, arr. You can see already it's turning into a great big brawl. It's a kaiju big battle. Arr. I do this for hours when nobody's looking. Spectremans and Boltons. Ultramans and Boltons. Spectreman videos. Cora, blame, if these things weren't so big and bulky, I'd be tempted to keep them myself, but they're big and bulky, so I'm resisting temptation. If you've never seen Spectreman, kids, take my word for it. This shiz is surreal. Maybe even more surreal and more bizarre than Ultraman, and that says a lot. Ultraman, and I know I'm using a mixed metaphor here, and I know it's a very bad pun, but watching Ultraman is like watching something from outer space. It is a TV show that could not have possibly originated on this earth. And Spectreman is even more so. So if you love kitschy, 60s, downright weird, giant superhero Japanese TV shows, I got a couple of episodes of Spectreman on original VHS in great big boxes for you. I got a lot of other VHS. I got vintage squeaky toys. Yes. Every time I squeeze this thing. Harry the cat perks up a little bit. He's been sound asleep this entire time we've been doing Tent Talk Tunes. I got stuff like this, man. How could I possibly pass this up if I saw it at a tag sale? I couldn't. That's why I'm putting it in my pop-up store. And of course, records. I mean, duh. Of course, the entire record section is going to be represented. I had several crates of them, many crates, and I've got an entire basement full of them. And that stuff is all definitely going to North Carolina with me. But why not sell some while I'm here? I mean, the name of the game is to sell. And I grabbed one random little pinch from the ST section. The ST section, Cat Stevens, Rod Stewart, Stockhausen, Stranglers, and of course the exotic Adrian Street. So that's just 5 records from one little section of the record department. And you see the variety represented here. The variety represented here is staggering. And that's only the ST section. So imagine an entire record department filled with, once again, carefully curated, hand-selected vinyl. It all has to be filtered through me before it goes out onto the sales floor. And I have no time, no patience, and no inclination for thrift shop filler or tag sale junk. I just don't do it. I just don't do it. And I won't waste your time with it. I won't waste my time with it. I won't waste your time. James Pogo says he loves Stockhausen. How did I know? How did I know? How did I know? How did I know? So that's kind of basically it. That's what's been keeping me super busy for these past months, literally months. I've been going through all this stuff and sorting it and sifting it and pricing it. And D-Day is 9 days from now. July 26th, 27th, and 28th. Trash American Style Final Revival. It's going to be one last chance for everybody to come here for one last gathering of the Trash American Style diaspora, the Trash Tribe, if you will, to hang out at what Trash American Style is these days, which will be here in my home, and chew the fat, cut a rug, breathe the air, see the colors, hear the sights, see the sounds, whatever it's all about, gang. And yes, I do know the secret recipe for the trash aroma. It is a critical part of anything Trash American Style pop-up. And it's a secret blend of sensory, savory, spicy smells that only I know. Only I know the combination of scents to replicate that unique Trash American Style aroma. Sean Mosher wants to know, how's the parking? Good question. There's going to be parking in the front yard, in the backyard, and there's also a driveway up above my yard, all of which will be accessible. There will also be street parking. The streets in my neighborhood are very narrow and very windy, so you're going to have to take a lot of care not to block the streets. But it should be possible. I think between the front yard, the backyard, the upstairs driveway, and very careful street parking, we should be able to accommodate everybody who wants to bring a car. Carpooling, I'd recommend it. Couldn't hurt. You know, more fun to travel a trash with a friend. That's what everybody used to do. Kids from Ridgefield would load up a car and drive to trash. Kids from Wilton, kids from Southbury, kids from Walcott, didn't matter. Get a whole carload together and come on down to trash and hang out. Do it. It'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing all you guys one last time as a Connecticut resident. I think it's going to be a lot of cool fun. It's going to be good. Of course, I will be in town periodically for the Danbury Record and CD Expo twice a year. I have no doubt that I'll be playing gigs in Connecticut still. But as far as Trash American Style goes, this is probably going to be it. I don't foresee any circumstance where I'll be doing a full-fledged pop-up store in this state again. So, John the Bomb Coletti, you got to come down and hang out, man, on lunch hour, just like the old days. You got to do it. you got to loiter. I can't guarantee there will be a free box, so I don't know if there's any incentive for you to show up, but come on down, man. I never threw you out, did I? I never threw you out. So it's pretty doubtful I would throw you out again, or ever. So think about it. July 26th, 27th, and 28th, there's an event page on Facebook. I've been posting about it ad nauseum. I will be announcing the specific street address very soon. Put it on your map, put it on your calendar, get it in your Waze or whatever you use, and get yourselves down to Sandy Hook, Connecticut next weekend, because it'll be fun. And I'm looking forward to it. And I will have one more Tent Talks Tunes between now and then. As per the suggestion of Jeff Clayton, who is the host of Break On Through every Tuesday at 7 on the Anti-Scene Facebook page, I'm probably going to do a live walkthrough of the finished store, because I think it looks pretty darn good. And over the next week, I'm going to be filling in all the cracks and, you know, really, really, really brightening the corners and everything. So probably do a live walkthrough next week on Tent Talks Tunes. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I do hope to see you here and there and then for that, which is about 167 hours from now. So until then, this is Malcolm Tent, as always, saying so long from the Nutmeg State.